One of the worst things about getting older is that we lose muscle. And this decline doesn't start too late. It starts in our 30s. But if you want to focus on living as long as possible and as healthy as possible, then your muscles are very important. Not just your muscle mass, actually more specifically, your muscular strength is one of the most important things. And actually the scary part about this is you lose muscle strength about 2 to 3 times faster than you lose muscle mass. And that's because we get atrophy, or basically the dying off of our fast twitch muscle fibers. So that means that earlier on, your training really has to be focused on strength training, and that includes heavy strength training. So does that mean that if you are a guy that's new to the gym and you've never benched 225 before to go put on 2 plates and try it for the first time? No, obviously you want to do it in a safe way. But there's way too many people that stop caring about their strength as they get older. I know a ton of people who are in their 20s and 30s who say, oh, I just want to maintain my muscle. And they go do a really light workout in the gym because they don't want to get injured. But what's going to happen when you get older? You're just going to start losing some of that muscle strength, and you're not going to be able to do some of the same workouts that you've been doing. And this is why so many people, when they get older, they have such a hard time doing the things that they used to love doing when they were younger. And they start having a hard time going on a walk, or even getting up and out of a chair, or just moving in general. Now, the other problem with muscle is we lose muscle a lot faster than we gain it. And you probably know this too. If you ever went on vacation for a week and you were out partying and you didn't really hit the gym, then that 1 week alone can do a lot of detrimental effects on your body. And this is true even for people who have been working out for a long period of time. I know there's this big misconception that if you've been working out for a long period of time, that you can kind of get away with not working out for a couple weeks. No, even if you've been working out for a long period of time, even a short period of not working out can quickly have you lose your muscle mass. So this is why that if I'm going out of town for a week, I still make it a priority to make sure I get some time in the gym and train. You know, if you think about our ancestors, we as humans were not designed to be sedentary and just relax on a beach for 7 days at a time. We were constantly moving and constantly hunting, basically constantly working out 24/7. So keeping our bodies active, even at times where we want to leisure and just relax, is so important. Working out should never be skipped, and exercising should never be ignored. And there's some studies that really show how fast you can lose your muscle mass and how hard it is to gain it back. So one study was looking at 12 healthy volunteers with an average age of about 67. And they put these people on bed rest for 10 days. And after those 10 days, they lost 3.3 pounds of lean muscle. And another study was looking at 62 seniors, and they had them engage in this strength training. And after 6 months, about half of them didn't even gain any muscle. But luckily, they also didn't lose any muscle mass. So at least they were able to maintain their muscle. Now, this is why it's so important to do exercises more earlier on to help mitigate these losses that we're pretty much guaranteed to have. Now, when it comes to strength training, when you want to focus on your health and overall how long you can live, there are 4 things to focus on. Number 1 is your grip strength. Number 2 is eccentric and concentric training. And number 3 is pulling motions. And number 4 is focus on your legs. So I'm going to go over all 4 of those in detail, but basically these 4 things are the most essential things to live a longer and healthier life. So when it comes to strength, one of the best indicators for how strong you are is how many heavy things can you carry. And the reason for this is because this is how we evolved. No other animal can carry things the way that us humans can. No other animals have 2 arms where they can hold their grocery bags and bring it into their house. You know, I'm always the one to carry luggage in the airport, and I actually enjoy it. I'm one of those weirdos that I avoid taking the escalator because I like to walk up the stairs by holding my 2 bags. Now, carrying things and focusing on your grip strength are things that are really easy to incorporate in your workout. I mean, just carrying your dumbbells from wherever you got them to wherever you're going to work out and actually racking them. Please don't be one of those people that do not rack your weights. Just doing that is going to engage your grip strength. Another really good way to do this is farmer's walks. So if you've never heard of this before, basically you take 2 dumbbells or you take 2 kettlebells and you walk for about a minute at a time. Now, this is also why I don't use straps when I work out at the gym. A lot of people, when they're deadlifting really heavy weights, they don't want to lose their grip strength, because the first thing that'll go is usually your grip strength and not your back strength when you're doing a deadlift. So they'll use these straps so that they don't have to hold the bar as hard. Now, me personally, I'm not training to set a new PR. I want to make sure I also get my grip strength when I'm doing a deadlift or a different movement like that. Another really good way to train your grip strength is by doing dead hangs. So if you're really into doing pull-ups, that's great because you get those pulling motions, and we're going to talk about that next. But just hanging on a pull-up bar and just basically dangling there for as long as you can is another great assessment of your grip strength. The longer you can hang there, the higher your grip strength is. Now, this is something you don't have to do every single day, but I like to incorporate this into some of my workouts, especially my back workouts, where in the middle of it, I'll just go hang on the pull-up bar as long as I can, and then next week I'll try to beat last week's time. Now, why exactly is grip strength so important specifically? Well, surprisingly, there's a ton of literature on specifically how strong your grip strength is, or basically how hard you can squeeze something. And basically what the research is showing is the higher your grip strength is, then the lower your risk of dying is. Now, the problem is that right now, Americans have a much weaker grip strength than we did a generation ago. In 1985, men between the ages of 20 and 24 had an average grip strength of about 121 pounds. Now, if you fast forward to 2015, those same age group men have an average grip strength of only 101 pounds. Now, this is kind of surprising because there's so many more gym memberships opening up and so many different ways to start working out, but we're still getting weaker. Now, after looking more into this, I think the real problem is people have just gotten lazier. I know a lot of people that have gotten really comfortable with their work from home job and basically being able to constantly be in front of their computer and playing video games and just being at home all the time and not really getting out and hitting the gym. Now, another thing that you should focus on, and this is something you should focus on every single workout, is focusing on both eccentric and concentric movements. So most people know what the concentric movement is. It's basically when you go up with your bench press or when you curl up that bicep curl. It's basically when your muscle is getting shorter and it's contracting. Now, the eccentric movement is the exact opposite. This is when your muscle is lengthening. So this is when you're putting down that dumbbell, or this is when after you do a deadlift, you're putting that weight down, or after you do a bicep curl, you're bringing that weight back down. Now, the reason that your eccentric strength is so important is because your eccentric strength is something that most people lack as they get older. Your eccentric strength is the strength that you need to basically help give you more control of your body. So if you want to make this more practical, for an elderly person, their strength when they're coming down the stairs to be able to control their body weight down the stairs, that's more of an eccentric movement. And also, these eccentric movements will help prevent us from falling down, which we've seen is the leading cause of death, of accidental death, in people 65 and older. Now, the cool thing about eccentric and concentric movements is you don't have to change your workout to focus on it. I focus on the eccentric movements on pretty much every single workout. So not every single rep of every single set, but there's some workouts where I focus on both the concentric, where I'm pushing the weight or pulling the weight, whatever I'm doing, and then focusing on the down movement. So for example, if I'm doing a row, I'll row the weight and then I'll come down to like a 5-second count. So I'll count to 5 in my head, and then by the time I count to 5, then I'll pull back up. Now you can do the same thing when you're doing a deadlift or when you're doing a bench press, whatever. I think every single movement, it will definitely benefit you. Now at the same time, sometimes I focus on explosive movements. Sometimes I focus on pushing the weight as hard as I can and as fast as I can. That's a totally different style of workout, and I don't think you need to incorporate to those styles of workouts, but I think in general, in any workout, you can find ways to include eccentric movements. Now, the next thing that you need to focus on is pulling motions. Now, the reason that pulling motions are so important is because your pulling motions are one of the most practical movements that you do when you get older. If you think about it, most of the different movements that you're doing throughout the day are pulling movements. So if you're pulling a door open, or if you're unloading your groceries, or if you're picking something up off the floor, all of these are pulling motions in some sort of way. So one of my favorite workouts to do is pull-ups, and this will also help with your dead hangs and your grip strength. So it's kind of like a two-fold attack on your strength. And also rowing. So rowing machines are great, but also just any rowing movements during your back workouts. So I personally like to do a back workout and specifically focus on my pulling motions about 2 times a week. Now, the last focus of strength I want to talk about is your legs. Now, one of the reasons that focusing on your legs is so important is because it houses 2 of the biggest muscles in your body, your hamstrings and your glutes. And if you focus on these 2 muscles, it's really going to help prevent you from getting injured, specifically injuries to your spine. Now, when you're working out these muscles, let's say you're doing a stiff-legged deadlift or something, you want to focus on not bending your spine. You want to keep your spine straight and only move your body at the hips. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on how to do different workouts because there's a ton of good programs online. I'm sure you can find things on YouTube or different videos on YouTube how to do a proper deadlift or a proper squat, so I don't want to go into detail on that. But the other reason that legs are so important is it's also so practical. Just being able to pick up things off the floor or get up out of a chair. When you're older, this is really going to help you. So there's a ton of different ways to target your legs, but you want to make sure you target those 2 muscles specifically when you're working out, your hamstrings and your glutes. So some simple ways to do that are doing the squats or deadlifts or step-ups where you step up onto a chair and step back down. All of these are targeting those 2 big muscles. Now, obviously, I'm not telling you to not focus on your quads or your calves or your other muscles in your legs. Those are still important too, but those 2 muscles, your glutes and your hamstrings, are the most important when it comes to being practical with your day-to-day life. The first step to becoming metabolically unhealthy is insulin resistance. So basically, the way insulin works is, let's say you eat something. You eat a nice hearty breakfast. You have sausage, you have eggs, you have potatoes, you have a bagel, a nice big breakfast.